Hey gamers, what's up? Muzz from L1 Games here once again with a video for you. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that I think could have an impact on gaming as a whole and gamers as a whole, and it's just worth talking about. Apparently 3 Pennsylvania lawmakers, Chris Quinn, Ed Nielsen, and Carol Hill Evans, are sponsoring House Bill 109 that proposes a video game tax on mature and adult-rated games. This bill calls for the establishment of a digital protection for school safety account that would go to the general fund and be used to enhance school safety measures around Pennsylvania. The tax would be in addition to any state or municipal taxes, and it would be up to the video game retailers to collect it. So this would be a 10% tax on top of the state sales tax that you already pay. Now I don't know what the state sales tax is there, but here in Columbus, Ohio, that means we pay 17.5% tax on any M-rated game we buy. So you're thinking, Muzz, you don't live in Pennsylvania, this isn't your problem, why are you worried about it? But that's not necessarily true. If a ridiculous bill like this passes anywhere, it could open the floodgates for similar laws to pass in other states. So just because you don't live in Pennsylvania doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of this law or the potential consequences of it. And for what? M-rated games are made for adults. So can someone tell me why, as an adult playing an M-rated game, I should have to pay an extra tax that would go to enhancing safety measures in schools filled with students who are not supposed to be playing mature games in the first place? Think about that. I'm all for making schools safe. That's fine, I completely agree, but this makes no sense at all. Games with a mature rating are intended for people 17 years or older and may contain intense violence, blood and gore, use of drugs, sexual content, strong language, etc. So why should I have to pay a tax that would go to enhancing school safety measures for schools filled with students, the majority of whom shouldn't even be playing the games in question? Do you recognize the ridiculousness of that? That's like charging a dog bite tax for cat collars. It just makes no sense. Now, if they said that parents who buy M-rated games for their 6-year-olds had to pay a tax, yeah, fine, because only a first-rate moron buys M-rated games for their 6-year-old. But imposing a tax on every single person who buys M-rated games? No! This bill also covers adult-only rated games, which is really funny, because these games shouldn't be played by anyone in the schools that the money would go to, at all. But let's look at this another way. You know, the Bible is one of the most violent pieces of literature out there. It's filled with rape, slavery, mass murder, war, blood sacrifice, genocide, and more. And unlike M-rated games, it's literally taught to children. So if violent video games that children aren't supposed to play in the first place can cause kids to commit acts of violence, then why wouldn't they argue that violent literature that's taught to them from young childhood could also have a similar effect? Why are they talking about charging a 10% Bible tax to go to a general fund that would enhance school safety measures? After all, religious holy books have led to countless wars, murders, and terroristic acts in numbers that video games will never hold a candle to. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. What about violent movies? Parents are constantly letting their kids sit in front of the TV with no supervision at all. Are we going to tax production companies for making R-rated films? How about Netflix, HBO Go, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, all the other streaming services? What about music with explicit lyrics? What about taxing devices that allow us to view or listen to this content? Sounds pretty extreme to do all that, doesn't it? Because none of that has anything to do with responsible adults who buy M-rated games. I mean, let's pretend for a second that a video game actually caused a kid to commit some kind of crime. Even in that case, we're not responsible for anything someone else's stupid kid who played a violent video game does. The responsibility for that falls squarely on the lap of the kid's parents. The buck stops there, period, the end. So this part of the video is for any parent that would vote for such an idiotic law. I know this much for certain. I have nothing to do with your stupid kid or anything they do. And if we're being honest, that M-rated game they played probably doesn't either. It's just more scapegoating brought to you by the people who have been unwilling to admit they're crappy parents for years now. Oh, my kid would never blah blah blah. Of course they would. Kids are totally capable of acting out scenes from their favorite video games, films, or songs. When I was a kid, I watched a Bruce Lee movie, and I ran around the house for 2 weeks thinking I was a frickin' kung fu master. The difference is parents who take an active role in their kids' life and teach them the basic precepts of right and wrong. But since you're doing such a poor job interacting with your kids, since you don't properly take an active part in their entertainment activities, since you fail in teaching them this simple concept on a daily basis, you suddenly want to pretend you're a participative parent and make a show of pointing out that you care about the things they're doing by making their school a safer place for all. And you'll do whatever it takes to find something, anything at all, that takes the blame for any wrong they may do off of you and puts it somewhere else. Even if it's a video game that you as a parent shouldn't have gotten for them in the first place, but did anyway. Even if it's in regard to behavior that you as a parent should have taught them was wrong in the first place. It wasn't long ago at all that you were perfectly fine using video games as a babysitter with no regard for the content you were giving them. And now suddenly you want to blame video games for every kid who doesn't know right from wrong and take money from people who have nothing to do with the problem and put it towards protecting places that aren't affected by the content so you can feel like Parent of the Year. And you know, that's only part of what's wrong here. There's so much more to this. This is the part of the video that talks about the facts that they fail to tell you when they try to do something like this. You actually have lawmakers trying to make you think that there are so many kids committing acts of violence that we need to impose extra taxes to protect our schools. Now you may say, but Muzz, our nation is so violent and video games may be contributing to it. Well, allow me to retort. Let's consider 3 factors here. 1. The most comprehensive studies on mature-rated video games and their connection to violent crime has shown there is no causal effect. 2. The number of crimes attributed to the playing of M-rated games versus the number of M-rated games in circulation is exceptionally low. 3. And most importantly, even with a population increase of 27.7%, violent crime in the United States has dropped more than 33% since 1992. In fact, it has decreased year to year on a steady basis for nearly 28 years straight. That's not just robbery or assault, that's across the board. Rape, property damage, murder, etc. have all decreased similarly. And crime rates as a whole have decreased nearly 40% for the last 28 years, which just so happens to be the amount of time that violent video games have been in the spotlight. But don't just take my word for it. Feel free to check out the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics or the FBI's websites. The information they supply will tell you the same thing, and it's beyond contestation. There is no better source for violent crime statistics anywhere. This is the manufactured crisis part. Things in our country are way better than they were 28 years ago, better than they were before violent games were ever the norm. And they get better almost every year. So why are you trying to tax people for the contribution that M-rated games have on crime rates that are in fact already improving without the tax? On what planet is that logical? Still not convinced? Well, let's look at it from another perspective. Consider a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. It came out about 5 months ago. It's an M-rated title. It features blood and gore, intense violence, nudity, sexual content, strong language, and drugs abuse and alcohol. And it sold around 25 million copies. That means, as of today, 62,500 criminal offenders would have to attribute their violent acts to Red Dead Redemption 2 to achieve a whopping 0.25% of its user base. Meanwhile, I haven't heard a single person blame their criminal ways on this game at all. And even though there are tens of millions of various other M-rated games released every year, I don't hear anyone blaming them by the thousands either. When is the last time you heard that millions of people were all committing crimes because of mature-rated video games? Because it would take at least that many to reach 1% of the total number of M-rated games that exist. And even if that were the case, would you call 1% an epidemic? No, you wouldn't. So why is this law even being suggested when there's no real example of its necessity? This generation has seen the sale of 177.96 million home game consoles so far. That's well more than one for every household in our nation, all of which have the ability to play violent video games and stream violent content. So if mature video games cause violent behavior, why aren't we experiencing a wave of psychotics hellbent on inflicting violence upon us all? Why isn't our nation in a state of video game-induced chaos? Where is all the crime? Why have crime rates dropped? And why are there people pretending video games have a part in causing violence and attempting to tax them for their non-existent contribution to this fabricated emergency and idiotic ideology? I'll close with this. Let's remember the facts when someone tries to blame video games for the failure of parents, and let's act with reason, rationality, and logic when uninformed people attempt to impose laws that are biased and unfair to a portion of the populace based on faulty information and unsound reasoning. And that's all I have to say on this. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon for updates for future content, and follow me on Twitter at L1Games. I'll catch you all later. Have a good day.